everyone. I am super excited to chat with Miss Julie Brar today. Julie is a certified health and nutrition coach, as well as a plant-based lifestyle advocate who is on a mission to help you conquer cravings and achieve total well-being. This woman is a powerhouse. She's a fellow Canadian entrepreneur. She was also an actress like I was for years. All the things, and she's also a dear friend. So I'm very excited to chat with you today, Julie. Yay! So tell us a little bit more about what you do and your background.
Well, I think since we work together, I've upgraded my certification. So yes, I'm a health coach, but I'm also a holistic nutritionist, and I'm always learning. So I have a special guest here. This is Coco, and
welcome, Coco.
Coco. Say hi to the good people. Aww. Yeah, so basically what I do is I help busy men and women who are ready to take their health back and find simple ways to incorporate health and wellness into their life. It usually starts with nutrition, but it can take a myriad of twists and turns depending on the person, because for a long time, along with my acting career, I taught yoga. And so I have yoga and meditation in my toolbox, and it's kind of individual in terms of what I actually help someone with. Some people are very far along in their wellness journey, like you, and they'll just you put them on a program and they're good to go. And other people are just starting. And so that's kind of, I work with people individually.
Yeah, that's great. So, I mean, if the viewers who are watching this haven't been following my journey, I just recently created a 30-day renewal for myself. I didn't really call it a challenge or anything like that. I was like, this is my 30-day renewal. And I incorporated the ultimate lifestyle transformation in that renewal, which I learned about through Julie. And it was actually my second time doing it. And both times I've gotten really great results. Yeah. I guess otherwise I wouldn't have done it a second time. And the products in this transformation come from a company called PURIUM. And I had never heard of PURIUM before I met Julie, and she introduced me to this program. And I would love for you to talk a little bit more about how you found out about PURIUM.
Yeah, so I have an autoimmune condition, hypothyroidism. And I've done a lot of things over the years to deal with the symptoms, and gone to different practitioners, multiple naturopaths, multiple medical doctors, and I was on medication. And in 2018, I put out the intention that I wanted to get off my medication. So I just finished all my certifications up to that point and made a lot of tweaks with my nutrition, and was able to get my body stable enough where I could drop the dosage that I was on. And then I hit a wall. I just plateaued for months and months and months. And so 2 years ago, in the spring of 2019, I started doing research into gut health and autoimmune conditions and what is the connection. And I went down this rabbit hole of discovering the links with autoimmune conditions and something called glyphosate, which, do you know what that is?
Tell me more about glyphosate. I mean,
so,
I know a little bit about it just because we've talked about it, but it's yeah.
Yeah. So glyphosate is the active ingredient in Roundup. Yeah. And Roundup is used very extensively in conventional farming. But the problem with glyphosate is that it's a water-soluble toxin. So on a water planet, it has the ability to go anywhere. So what it does in the soil is it destroys the microbes in the soil. What it does on plants is, besides stopping weeds from, taking over, is it actually disrupts the amino acid profile of plants. And because our human body also has microbes in our gut, it also destroys not only the microbes in our gut, but also starts to create perforations in the gut, what is known as leaky gut. So I knew I had leaky gut because I'd been diagnosed with it in 2016, but nobody actually told me what to do about it, and nobody told me how dangerous it was. And so I started researching, and I was like, okay, so how do I, okay, the glyphosate is in, how do I get it out? And there's only a couple of companies in the world that deal with that. So there's a company that I found who was actually founded by an MIT researcher. It deals with the glyphosate, but it doesn't deal with the leaky gut. So it's only like solving part of the problem. And then PURIUM happens to have the only product that also deals with the glyphosate as well as the leaky gut. So that was kind of what got me interested in them initially, because I was like, wow, if they can get the toxic chemicals out of the body and repair the lining of the gut, like that's magic, right? Because the thing with autoimmune conditions, when you have perforations in the gut and the contents of the gut start to leak out, right? And that's what causes all of these. It's one of the contributing factors to all these different autoimmune conditions. So in someone like me, it manifests as hypothyroidism, but in someone else, it can manifest as something else completely different. And so you have all these different conditions and they look very, very different on the surface, but if you dig deeper, there's a connection. Yeah. And so in August of 2019, I did my own transformation. That very similar to the same transformation that you did. I did the same transformation because I wanted to see like, oh, does this stuff work? Yeah. And there have been people who have gotten themselves tested. I didn't, but you can actually get a test from Great Plains Lab that allows you to test your glyphosate levels before you start on the PURIUM line of products. And then they do a follow-up test weeks later. And they've seen the drop, not only in the glyphosate levels, but also in C-reactive protein, which is an inflammation marker. Yeah, yeah. So
is it the Biomedic product that deals with both the leaky gut and the glyphosate? Or
yeah.
It is, right? Yeah.
So Biomedic is what I consider, like, to me, unless somebody has gone through multiple rounds of, say, antibiotics, there's pretty much no need to really be taking probiotics if you're eating properly. Right. Biomedic, what it does is it removes the glyphosate, removes other toxic chemicals as well, because the only way you could see a drop in C-reactive protein is if other inflammation markers are also removed. Removes heavy metals, repairs the lining of the gut, and it functions as a pre and a probiotic. Right. So it's kind of like a 3-in-1 product. But the reason that I always recommend people do the ultimate is because with the other products that are in there, the Power Shake, the aminos, and the apothecary, your body's like nutritional foundation is brought up. So a lot of times people try and detoxify, but they don't have adequate nutrition in their body. So they'll start the process and then things get reabsorbed back in.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And the other part of the 30-day transformation is the super cleanser.
Yeah.
And that's a part of the protocol. And I also love that is included in the ultimate lifestyle transformation as well because of what it does. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's a parasite cleanse. And I have seen some gnarly photos that people have posted in our private group of what comes out of their body when they do super cleanser. So we get exposed to all kinds of bacteria and viruses and parasites. Some of the parasites, if you have companion animals like we do here, we have dogs, they can pick up something and transfer it to their human. But the most common is usually in animal products. So if someone's eating, like, for example, pork has a lot of parasites in it. Yeah. I've also seen some gnarly scans of that, and it's kind of like it makes your skin crawl a little bit. So yeah, so in the ultimate lifestyle transformation, the parasite cleanse is included in it. And it's good. Usually the protocol is to do 10 days in the middle of the transformation and then wait about 20 days and then run it again. Because with the super cleanser, there's always extra product left over, but it's so that you can do 2 rounds. Oh, but then usually I also tell people, like, make sure you're taking the Power Shake and the Biomedic. So there's like some foundational nutrition in there and we're cleaning everything out, because what happens with the parasites is as they're leaving your body, they will leave behind some eggs. Ew. I know. So you want to get the eggs out too and take care of the problem.
Yeah. Do you ever?
Yeah.
So I just finished the 30-day transformation, I guess about a week ago now.
Yeah.
So what would you recommend my next step in terms of maintenance plan, or like what would you, I actually have seen in the Facebook group a couple of people do the 30-day like back to back, so they do it for 60 days. What would you recommend, typically for somebody who does it for the first time and then have a maintenance plan?
It just kind of depends on what someone's goals are, like health goals. That's what I really do love about the PURIUM product line, is there's a lot of flexibility. If someone's like looking to lose like 30 to 50 pounds, they probably do need to do back-to-back ultimates until they get to their goal.
Right.
But if it's also like what I did was I did a transformation, and then I went into maintenance, which is the daily core 4. And that's what I've stayed on. Like, I mean, in a way, I'm almost always kind of doing the ultimate, because I tend to do the 2 shakes and a meal. It works really great in my lifestyle because things are really, really busy. And so I know I'm getting like 1 power shake is equal to having 6 servings of veggies. And when I'm talking to clients, that's always the sticking point, is that people just don't get it. They'll gravitate more towards fruit. That seems to be easier for people to incorporate, but they're not used to having veggies, especially green veggies. So the power shake is a great way to kind of up someone's nutrient profile without forcing them to eat all of these veggies that they don't feel like eating. And the thing also is the power shake. Yeah, it's pretty yummy.
The prepping and the washing and then the composting and then then there's it's a lot. And I know I guess it's a little easier with fruit, which makes sense. People can just gravitate towards an apple or a banana or whatever their choice of fruit is. But I get it. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I run multiple businesses, a wife, mom, all the things. And I was part of my 30-day renewal was I did the ultimate lifestyle transformation, and I did celery juice every morning. It was like some mornings I was like, oh my God.
Oh yeah, I've done the celery juice, and it's a commitment.
It's a commitment. All right, it's a commitment. But you just touched on something about people coming to you, and it depends on what their goals are, right?
Yeah.
And so when people come to you as a coach, what would you say is the #1 issue people are struggling with?
I think for most people, it's weight loss is what they're looking for.
Right.
But they're not recognizing that there are things that are going on in their body that are preventing them from losing weight, right? So on average, I was just at True North Health Center for almost all of April, right? And it was great because there were these lectures, and there was a lecture on sleep, and I'm a nerd when it comes to sleep. Like, I wear an Oura ring.
Me too.
Yes. We had a whole conversation. So I wear an Oura ring, I track my sleep, but most Americans on average get 5.5 hours of sleep. And if you're getting less than 6 hours of sleep, it actually only takes a week of sleep loss to start to tip your body into insulin resistance.
Right. And we're already in insulin resistance anyway, because what we're eating, typically what our society eats, right?
Yeah. So it's like between what people are eating and the lack of sleep and the over exercising.
Yes.
I had to recognize this even for myself, because I went through a period where I was like, doing high intensity interval training. But I realized, working really closely with a new naturopath and also talking to another friend of mine who's a holistic nutritionist and personal trainer, I was telling her kind of what I was doing. And she's like, I think you're overtraining.
Yeah.
And as I kind of sat with it and really thought about it, I was like, ding, ding, ding. Because how much stress is my body under? We're in stressful times. I sleep really good, but then I'm doing these workouts, and it's too bad I wasn't wearing my Oura ring when I was doing those workouts, because I think actually my body probably never recovered. Because now I wear my Oura ring, and on the days where I do heavier lifting or I'm more active, I get to see the next day like, oh, my body's not quite recovered.
Yeah.
So I know that that's the day where I'm going to walk, I'm
yeah.
going to do yoga, I'm going to lay off, right?
Right. And you know that I created the, you know, the Optimal Health and Conscious Living Academy. So, and I also struggle with autoimmune disorder. I have hypothyroidism. So, you know, all of this, when I went on my journey to find out more about, I was like, what's going on? And then I found out more of my friends were, you know, experiencing similar things. And so I went on a journey to find out what are the most misdiagnosed and most misunderstood areas of women's health, especially women our age. Cause I was on a mission. I needed to know more. And one of the things that I learned was exactly what you're talking about. And I incorporated into my academy was that if you are under a lot of stress, if you are not getting enough sleep, if your adrenals are fatigued, the last thing you want to do is work out with high intensity, because your body's going to hold on to that fat.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. And so usually if I'm working with someone, I kind of like, I need to know what their goals are. They're probably looking more for weight loss, but I usually ask them about diet and lifestyle. Mm-hmm. How much are you sleeping? How much water are you drinking? What are you eating? What are you drinking outside of water?
Yeah.
What are your stress levels like? How much are you sitting in a day? Like these are all things that I want to understand with someone before I go, okay, like here's how we're going to approach it. Now,
sorry, go ahead.
Now, the cool thing about a program like the Ultimate is for people who are busy and already overwhelmed.
Yeah.
It takes care of the 2 out of 3 meals.
It does. And it's so great. And I never felt hungry. I love the one thing, and I said this to you the first time I did the program, I never felt hungry.
Yeah. It's because, so you have to think about it. When you're eating food, your body's going to break everything down to individual components and utilize them. So the cool thing so the power shake is actually like juicing, like doing a cold pressed juice without all the work, right?
Yeah. Because
they dehydrate all those foods at the farm level at low temperatures so that none of the enzymes or the nutrients are destroyed. So they get delivered to you, you add water, boom, that's a raw living juice. And in fact, unless I'm making a cold pressed juice or I go somewhere and they're making a cold pressed juice in front of me, I don't buy bottled juices at all.
Yeah.
Because after 20 minutes, those enzymes and nutrients, they oxidize, they're useless.
Yeah.
So if you're spending like $10 on a cold pressed juice at Whole Foods or whatever, how long has it been sitting there? Right? And that's why you didn't feel hungry, because your body's still getting the nutrients.
That's right.
At a cellular level, it looks different because it arrives as a dehydrated powder, but it's actually more nutrient dense than if you were to go to a grocery store and go to the organic produce aisle, because you have to factor in, and this makes so much sense. Like when I think back to I'm sure you've had this experience. I feel like I've been a detective my entire life when it comes to holistic health and nutrition. So in 2008, when I did one of my yoga teacher trainings in India, I was at an ashram, and everything that we ate at that ashram, they grew. Yeah. They grew in an organic garden, and it came straight from the garden to the kitchen, and they made us food, right?
At Anamaya, we grow our, food from the farm.
Yeah.
Serve it to our guests.
So it's literally farm to table. So here in our North American food system, everything is trucked, and it's trucked many, many miles. So unless you're able to grow your own food, or you have access to farms, which I'm fortunate, we are like 5 minutes from farm country, so I can get organic produce, but the PURIUM stuff is still fresher.
Wow.
It's still fresher because it's like they pick it, they dehydrate it. It doesn't sit anywhere, doesn't lose any nutrients. And that's the genius of what Dave Sandoval has created. And it's also because they're dehydrating and it takes a different form. They're not trucking as much food, right? Like broccoli, a full head of broccoli is larger in size than a dehydrated powder. But you think of all the trucks and all the diesel that's involved in trucking food here. So it's actually, not only is it more nutrient dense, but it's actually more environmentally friendly, the way that they process things.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I love that. So, so just kind of real quickly, how would you break down, like if somebody says, well, what do you have to do with the ultimate lifestyle transformation? Like what's involved? We've already talked about 2 shakes and we talked about a couple of the supplements, but just to kind of explain to people, if you were to sign up, this is what you'd be doing for 30 days.
So overall, you're looking to reduce inflammation in your body. So you're going to add these superfoods, and at the same time, you're going to subtract the foods that cause inflammation. So that's processed sugar, alcohol, dairy, meat, caffeine. But Dave does have an exception when it comes to the caffeine. He's like, if having 1 cup of coffee will keep someone doing the ultimate, it's better that they have that 1 cup of coffee and do the ultimate rather than not do the ultimate at all, because they're so attached to their coffee. And then even in terms of meat, like I encourage people to do it 100% plant-based, because that's when they're going to see the most dramatic improvement. But there are people that are not there yet.
Right.
And so there are small allowances, like very small allowances for that. And so it is a program that is open to anyone. And so it's like and there's also different ways to do it. There's an intermittent fasting version, there's an accelerated version, then there's a lifestyle version. And so it depends on what someone's goals are, what their lifestyle is like, and what's doable, right? Yeah. So for a lot of the moms that I deal with who are really busy, probably the lifestyle version is the easiest version, right? Breastfeeding moms can do it. They have to skip the Parasite Cleanse part of it, but they can do it. And for breastfeeding moms, I usually say, you might need a second meal. Even though you're doing the lifestyle version, you might need a second meal because you're breastfeeding. Yeah. So there's a lot of flexibility depending on what someone's life looks like. Mm-hmm. And then you're also focusing on whole foods. So nothing that's processed. And that's the other key component, as many organic foods as possible and nothing that's processed. And that's where between the PURIUM foods, which are also all organic and non-GMO, there's no sugars or anything like that in there. Between that and just shifting your eating habits, it's like for most people, it's a pretty dramatic improvement. Like I've seen people lose a few pounds, and I've seen some people who have a lot of inflammation in their body because their body's holding onto that weight because of stress. And the apothecary in the transformation is magic, right? Yes. It helps with sleep. Yeah. And so tart cherries, which is the one ingredient that it's made of, are actually help your body to naturally boost melatonin, and melatonin is what helps you sleep. And so once you're sleeping deeper, then like when you're not sleeping or you're not getting enough sleep, restful sleep, your body actually perceives it as a state of stress. Yeah. So as soon as you start sleeping more, then the stress levels come down, hormones start to balance out, and your body can actually really repair on a cellular level. So that's the magic of apothecary. I mean, every time they have a sale on apothecary, I stock up.
Right. I know, I love it. It's so good. And sometimes I'll even drink it in a wine glass because I'm not drinking any wine at that time, but it's just so dark and yummy and it looks so pretty in a wine glass.
Well, people have so many twists on the apothecary: wine glass, some soda, lemon. I mean, I've seen it all. I prefer it just straight up. And I don't have 2 tablespoons. I have 4 because I love it.
That's so good. It's so good. So yeah, so there's, like you were saying, there's like 3 different ways. There's basically like you sign up, you get all the supplements and the shakes and all the things, and then there's 3 different versions that you can choose to commit to depending on, like Julie was saying, your goals. I love that there is an intermittent fasting version. I don't think there was the first time I did it, but I saw that there was this time, which I thought was great. Yeah. And so I know that, you know, there's other ways that you work with people. And I also know that, you know, there isn't really no one size fits all approach. You know, there's no one size fits all approach to building your business, to health and wellness, to relationships, to dealing with, you know, personal blocks. It's personal. But what are the different ways, or I should say, so because of that, what are the different ways that you work with clients? What are your offerings, so to speak, or the services that you have available?
Well, I mean, for people who are really sort of new to this game and they kind of want to get a flavor of how I work, I do have a free ebook that kind of helps people start on their wellness journey. There's so much information out there. And so in the ebook, I lay out some of my tips of things that I've incorporated and also suggestions on how they can incorporate some of these things. They might seem really, really basic, but it's actually so many people don't have the basics. Right? So it's really, really important. And then in terms of like, I have a 5-day, I have a 40-day, and with both my 40-day and with the 30-day is I really work. I usually check in with every single person who's doing the program, and I find out like how much support do they need.
Right.
Like some people, they want that weekly support, weekly accountability. Yeah. And we're probably like in my 40-day program called Bye Bye Sugar. Yeah. I talk about meditation and tapping and sleep and movement and yoga and all of these other wellness aspects that are important to incorporate. And so in that program, it's not exclusively dietary. I mean, it's different because you have all of these tools already, but for somebody who's, whether they're doing the 40-day or they're doing the 30-day, if they need more support of like, okay, I know I should meditate. How can I meditate? I'm going to be sharing resources and tips and ways that they can start to bring a practice into their life, because meditation is so powerful when it comes to reducing stress levels. I'm a huge, huge proponent of meditation. Like I've been meditating now for over 14 years. And so to me, meditation is equal to breathing. Like, yeah, there's no way I wouldn't breathe. But for a lot of people that maybe they've never been exposed to these things, because I'm thinking back to before I knew all this stuff, like how stressed out I was. I would frequently, like I've been doing yoga since my early 20s, but prior to that, when I was in university, I would have periods where I would get so stressed out, so overwhelmed, so depressed, like I would just be so low because I didn't have these tools. Now I have these tools of breath work, meditation, yoga, nutrition, all of these different things that I incorporate into my daily life. But it was a process for me to get here, right? Mm-hmm. And so I always like to remind people that you can't. This is why New Year's resolutions don't work, because people just want to flick a switch and be a totally different person. It's like you have to start adding these habits. One thing I can say is that when you change your nutrition, you move the needle in so many ways at once. Like your energy is going to be better, your mood's going to be better, you're going to sleep better, you're going to feel better. That's going to motivate you to want to exercise and do some of the other things. So it's like if you can address that piece, then a lot of the other things fall in place. Mm-hmm. And now the reason that I really love the Ultimate is because it addresses gut health so well. Yeah. Because a lot of the mood stuff and stress is also gut related. And people don't realize that the bugs in your gut, the microbes in your gut, if you're eating a certain way, like if you're eating a lot of processed foods or processed sugar or even meat and dairy, those microbes will keep telling you that that's what you want.
Because that's right? What they're eating.
That's what they're eating. And so you literally have to change the fuel you're putting in your body at the same time as getting rid of those microbes and bringing in microbes that actually crave fruits and veggies and the healthier stuff. So that's kind of like what has to happen. And I always like to remind people that it's not one thing that makes us sick, mm-hmm. right? It's how all these different things coalesce together and create an environment where disease is possible. So in a nutshell, it's like a lack of nutrients, chemical toxicity, and stress. And stress can come from the foods we're eating, the thoughts we're thinking, how we're moving, sleeping, the types of relationships we have, as well as whatever environmental stress we're exposed to. So we want to look at what are the things that are creating the imbalance, and then how can we start to nudge the body back towards balance? Because our body wants homeostasis. It's always looking for that. So, so then all of these other practices of nutrition and movement and mindset and sleep, like that's about bringing the balance back.
Yeah. So, and I think that also harkens back to like, it's not a one size fits all, right? And like, you have to know what the people, what are their goals, but also what's happening, what's happening underneath that. Cause people are like, I want to lose 30 pounds. It's like, okay, but let's go deeper, and look at what's really going on here, to contribute to the inflammation, to the weight, to how you're feeling, to all the things.
And also like having a healthy relationship with your body, and also having self-compassion, because if you do have 30 pounds to lose, you didn't put on 30 pounds overnight.
That's right?
And so having some patience with the process and just trusting that process. And it also depends on what's going on for your body. Like I can say, as someone like me who has this condition, I did, after 6 months of being on PURIUM, completely go off my thyroid meds.
Now, can I have a quick question? Were you on desiccated thyroid or were you on Synthroid?
I was on Synthroid. I had got my doctor to take me off desiccated, like, I think it would have been 2015 or 2016. I just didn't want to be on it anymore because I found out where it was sourced from.
Yeah.
I was like, nope, I'm not doing it. And so I was on Synthroid, but I've been off Synthroid for like over a year and a half now, just over.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And I mean, some of the symptoms that I had previously, and this was what got me to want to go off my meds, was I had brain fog. I had lots of chronic joint pain. Obviously the weight was an issue. Emotionally, like I was really depressed at times. And so I started working on my diet first and saw an improvement. And then once I honed in on gut health, then that was what got me to completely be off the medication. And I've been stable and off the meds, and none of those other symptoms have come back.
Amazing.
Yeah. And I do get, like, I get my levels checked. It's funny because I'm going to be doing blood work in a couple of days, probably this week. Right. But I get my blood work done 2 or 3 times a year. So I'm checking all of my thyroid levels, but usually also vitamin D and B12 and some of these other things as well, so that I'm on top of what's happening in my body. But I'm also really, really tuned in.
Yeah.
Like I would have days before and I got frustrated, and that's why I wanted to get off the meds, because I'm like, I'm taking these pills every morning and nothing is changing. And I would be so tired. You know that term thyroid tired? Yeah. I would be so tired. There was a brief period of time where I was doing script supervising on set back in 2016. And I would be so tired standing at the monitor, watching a shot. I know I got to pay attention, but all I wanted to do was go to sleep. Yeah. And that was kind of what got me started. Like, okay, wait a minute. I've seen these doctors, I'm seeing naturopaths, I'm taking these pills, they're doing nothing. Like, and it's like when it's how you feel in your body and it's so affecting your life in such a bad way. Like, I think the health professionals mean well, but they're not the ones living your life. They're not the ones who are suffering.
And I typically, I'm generalizing, but I find that with conventional medicine, they do think in more of a one size fits all fashion. Whereas when I found the naturopath that I started working with and the integrative doctor that I started working with, it wasn't even just one person. Like I had an acupuncturist and, all the things, right?
Yeah.
My chiropractor who's also does, acupuncture. Like I had a team of people who helped me put all the pieces together, so that we could find a solution. And it doesn't happen overnight. No. But they were more interested in figuring out the puzzle than just saying, here, take this and, take this twice a day and I'll see you in 6 months.
Yeah. And I've had the same thing in my experience with conventional medicine is when I first came off my thyroid meds, so yeah, it is like take the medication, and I started questioning the medication because my quality of life was so far removed from what I was used to of. And so I was like, okay, I can accept that I'm different, but I can't accept being like this for the next 60 years, right? I'm not into that. And so when I first went off my thyroid meds, I knew that there was going to be some disturbance in my TSH levels, my T3 and T4 for sure. And so I did blood work previous to going off. And then I did blood work a few weeks later, and my TSH was pretty high. And my medical doctor called me and she's like, you need to go back on the meds. You need to double the dose, blah, blah, blah. And I said, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing it. I've worked really hard to get to this point. And I just had faith in my body that things were going to stabilize. And so sure enough, a few weeks later, my naturopath and I did another blood test and the levels were coming down.
Right. That's amazing. It's similar to when people start intermittent fasting and they go to their doctor and their cholesterol goes up, because you do know that when you start intermittent fasting, your cholesterol goes up for a little while and they're like, oh my God, stop what you're doing. It's horrible. And it's your body adjusting to become more fat adaptive, right? So that their insulin levels can, can come down. So, but conventional medicine is like, no, cholesterol is way too high. Stop what you're doing. And, it's like, there's just no, and again, I'm generalizing because not all conventional doctors are like that, but it is frustrating when they don't allow room for our human bodies to adjust to these changes and to be patient.
Yeah. And that patient piece is really important because it's now 2021 and I started on the journey to get off my medication in 2018.
Interesting, right?
It's been it took me 2 years to get off the meds. I know for me personally, for my body, weight loss just takes more time.
Yeah,
it does. And I'm not impatient about it. I'm more focused on how I feel in my body. And there's also like the emotional component of it, because you and I both worked in the film world, is there's that programming that happens in the film world where if you're not under 30, why are you alive?
Yeah, if you don't have a certain body type, don't even bother.
If you're not a size 0, like you're overweight. And I'm more focused on like, how do I feel in my body? Like, how do I feel and what's going on and how am I moving? How am I breathing? Like, that's more important to me than, and I've been a size 0. And I've also accepted that I might never be a size 0, but that doesn't make me less worthy of having a good life or having fun or enjoying life. No. And to me, I'm just more interested in being able to be happy and to be able to do the things that I want to do. Right?
Yeah, that's it. And I think, and also there's also a huge emotional component to all of this as well, because a lot of us use foods and alcohol and certain things to suppress emotions, trauma, feelings that surface and we don't want to deal with them. And we use that. That's a whole other thing, which we could talk about for another 45 minutes. But I would love for you. So I'm going to put the links below on how to find you and also to your freebie for your ebook, because I think that's awesome. How else can people find you, Julie?
Well, there's a bunch of ways. I am on the social media. So I'm on Instagram. I have a Facebook page, Julie Brar. I think I finally changed it because I initially started out as a health coach. So it was there as a health coach. I think I finally updated my page. I'll have to send that to you. And so I share lots of like helpful content on there, like tips, health tips and tricks and recipes. I also have a weekly show called The Wellness Movement. Yeah. And I have different guests on that show, and we talk about mindset and depending on who's the guest, like sometimes I have on, like I had on this wonderful woman who's like in the program and recovering and she's lived probably 10 lives in the time that she was an addict. And So it was great having her on the show. And we did this whole episode where we were talking about forgiveness, right?
Wow, so powerful.
Going back to like this whole, like there's an emotional component. Like most people, if you really talk to them, have some trauma in their life, right? Okay. And that trauma, to deal with it, people create different coping mechanisms. So sometimes it's drugs and alcohol for one person, it's food for someone else, it could be sex, it could be shopping, it's a plethora of things. But once you recognize like, oh, these are the things and they're destroying me, right? They're destroying my health or they're destroying my happiness, and you start to like actually address those issues, I think like forgiveness is a huge part, because you have to forgive the person you were that was making these choices that are harming you. And so we did this whole talk on forgiveness, and we both shared our tools, because I have forgiveness tools that I use every single day after meditation, and she has tools as well. And it was a really, really good episode. So there's that. There's Instagram. Those are kind of like some of the free content that I have out there.
Awesome. Well, I'll make sure to post those links below in the description. Thank you so much, Julie. I feel like we could talk for hours.
Well, like you're one of the people I'm like, I have to talk to Kelsey. Awesome.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I could talk to you every day. Yeah. And I'm hoping one of these days we'll actually get our butts to New York.
Yes, get your butt to New York, and I'm hoping this summer I might be able to get my butt to Toronto, depending on how they open up the borders and all of that. And so that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Yay. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And yeah, we'll have to do this again, because I feel like we could talk about so much. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And enjoy the rest of your day in that gorgeous dress.
Oh, thank you. All right. We'll talk soon.